Here we go, here we fucking go. All right, lads. Oi, 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 oi. It's the big one. Welcome to Dragoncast. I'm Jamie East.
And I am Chris Mandle.
And this is our penultimate. What a week of penultimates we're having.
All the penultimates.
This is our penultimate Game of Thrones rewatch, which is terrifying to think of.
It's been a long journey in a way. It really has.
And even though we've only done like a third of the amount of shows, it's still, I think we've put it in a good stint.
It's been a big part of our lives for quite a long time. It does feel like we've kind of been not in the trenches because it's not hard, but it's quite a big commitment. It's quite strange to think of it coming to an end. I think especially because we're doing season 8 a bit differently.
Yeah. I was watching episode 4. If you're wondering what we're doing season 8 episodes 3 and 4 today.
Yeah.
I thought, I was like, how many times have I been sat watching Game of Thrones, making notes on Game of Thrones? I was like, my God, more hours than I care to remember. And
it probably won't be the last time. We'll watch these episodes again at some point. I mean,
100%.
Season 8's been really fun for me because I haven't really watched it that much. I've seen The Long Night, the episode we're covering first of our 2. I have seen that a couple of times, I think, because it is always on Sky.
It's the big one.
But I've never watched it in order. So to get to do the final season in one sort of gulp is quite exciting, and I'm definitely.
Have you had time to watch anything else? Is anything else going on in the Mando TV universe?
Did I tell you that we're watching Top of the Lake? I think I did bring that up.
Which one's that? No, I don't.
Is
that the New Zealand.
Yeah,
is that the
Elizabeth Moss. Yeah,
I watched the first season. Really enjoyed that.
We're on the first season.
I'm not sure I even got around to watching this. Is the second one's got Gwendolyn Christie in it, hasn't it?
It has. Yeah, I sort of forgot that. There was 2 seasons. I think we're only going to watch season 1, so I think we're actually about to watch the last episode.
Oh wow!
So there's another penultimate there. We just had heard good things. We weren't really finding anything that we were super into, so we decided to watch it, and it's pretty good. I have to say, it's also absolutely batshit. Like I feel like it
is crazy, isn't it? Peter Mullen's brilliant in it, isn't he?
Yes, as the guy the inexplicably Scottish man on the remote island
in New Zealand. Yeah, of course.
The thing I would say about it is it feels really sort of dated to this in the sense that it feels about 13 years old, and that's not a criticism as so much as everything is just written like they were on cocaine. Like it's just the most. Every episode is just doing the most, and it's maybe something that we'll talk about in this episode, just about laying your tracks down. Shows now like Succession and Barry, they're very good about sort of they know where the guardrails are and they know where they're going, and this show is a bit like Thrones has been, where it's kind of just what if everything is a major plot twist all the time?
Yeah.
And then I'm watching it and I think I must be quite a frustrating person to watch television with, because I'm going, well, how much time has jumped between that scene and this scene? She was at the bottom of the hill now and it's nighttime, and she's at the top of the hill and it's the morning, an absolute killjoy. But just one of those things that you can't stop doing when you watch a lot of telly.
Continuity Chris, that's what we're calling it.
I thought you were going to say continuity cunt.
Continuity
Same thing.
Chris.
So we've been watching that, and we're watching Barry, which is just incredible.
I've paused Barry. We've had a bit of a family. We've found a series as a family in the East household, which doesn't happen that often. So we've been watching From. Have you heard about From?
No.
So From is it's on Sky Sci-Fi, I think, but it's also on. I think you can get it on Amazon Prime and hire it in various places. It's basically Lost, and it stars Michael Waltstad from Lost.
Yeah, Harold Perrineau.
Yes.
Perrineau.
Basic premise is, if you imagine Lost not as an island but as a town, so it's remote, kind of like American Midwestern town. There's a gas station on the outskirts. Yeah. People start driving through and they go, "Oh, this is a quaint town." Then an hour later, they're like, "Hang on a second, haven't we just passed this town?" And they realise that they keep going around, they keep getting stuck, and there's monsters there that only come out at night. So they have these talismans that protect them, and it's all quite good, but it's quite an easy, daft watch, and it's quite scary. It's it's meant to be a horror So if you're into your kind of horror jump scares kind of thing, as my kids are far more than parents always tend to be, that's been a good watch, I think. But
there's two things that are coming up that I'm sort of excited for. One is the 4th season of True Detective.
Yes, with Jodie Foster.
I didn't actually stick. I didn't watch the 3rd season, which I think had Mahershala Ali in it.
It started. The problem with True Detective is that the 1st season was just so good. And it was so stylistically different, and it was like oh my god, this it's like a long play. It's a bit like The Third Man, the Jude Law thing that was on Sky Atlantic a couple of years ago, which was kind of slightly tried to break the rule book a little bit. But yeah, True Detective season 1 was incredible. Season 2 was one of the biggest dramatic disappointments I've ever experienced in my life. It was awful.
It was just trying so
Who was it?
hard.
Colin Farrell and
Rachel McAdams was in it.
Yeah, it was awful.
Oh my god, there was someone else. I used to review it. And every week I just hated it, and I kept thinking, God, why am I doing this to myself? But Taylor Kitsch, of course.
Yes,
I sort of forgot who he was. Vince Vaughn. Oh my God, Vince Vaughn.
That was it.
4. That's the thing. There was 4 lead characters.
Yeah,
that's too many.
I watched 1 episode. I think maybe we watched 2 episodes. I was just like, I'm out. This is just weird.
So season 3, I didn't bother with. Season 4, I mean, it basically looks like that show. That I'm sure we went to see when it launched, which was set in Svalbard. Do you know?
Fortitude. Yes.
Yeah.
Love that.
It kind of looks a bit like that.
Good.
But I also think with True Detective, I've kind of come back round to being like, it's kind of, I don't care about any consistency. I don't care about, all it is a vehicle to just fling some A-list talent.
Yeah.
A really, really expensive setting, and I'm willing to just go there and see what it's doing.
I think Jodie Foster's hit rate is pretty good as well. You'd kind of think that someone like Jodie Foster would have gone, okay, I need to see the script because this has had a really bad few years, and
let me Jodie Foster it up. Like, she'll bring a lot to it. I feel like if Kate Winslet doing Mayor of Easttown, I'm like, it feels like that to me, where it's like we're gonna just get to see. We're just going to get to see her work incredibly well. And I'm just like, I'm here for that. I don't really care about, like, it doesn't have to be the best show. I just want, like, a really good, clean drama.
Yeah.
The other thing is Marvel's Secret Invasion. So I've been off grid with the Marvel stuff. I just can't keep up with it. It feels like homework. There's just so much, Easter eggs.
I did Quantumania. Awful.
Yeah.
I have to say,
terrible.
I have to say, I didn't get Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. I didn't get the hype. I went to see it. There's people going, oh my God, I cried so many times. It's like, really? Come on. It was a bit of a rehash of Toy Story. You know, there's a Toy Story subplot there. Toy Story 2 subplot. I don't know. Yeah, it needs a hit. It just needs...
They really need a hit. I don't know where...
It's just been a shambles.
I don't know where they're going to get a hit from, given... No offense to Captain Marvel 2 that's coming out in November, but
there's just loads, isn't there? You know, I don't really. The problem that the Marvel has is that they just did it. I think we mentioned it in the last couple of podcasts that, Infinity War and Endgame they're just virtually impossible to better.
Yeah,
and what they've tried to do is just do a continuation of it. You know, so actually, you know, it's unfair because after Endgame, we had Spider-Man. Far From Home or No Way Home, that was fantastic. That was really good.
I like that.
So what is Secret Invasion? That's like Samuel
Secret
L. Jackson,
Invasion is TV. It's Samuel L. Jackson, Emilia Clarke, Olivia Colman, Kingsley Ben-Adir, and it's sort of a CIA kind of running around with guns kind of version.
Okay.
So I think it actually could be quite good. I think it could be quite good for the casual fan. It's 6 episodes, which is sort of, I'm like, okay, it's basically a film. But, and it's all to do with Skrulls, who are aliens that can look like other people. So I think the whole...
played by Ben Mendelsohn.
Who is in it as well. Yeah.
I saw him in London. It was last time I was in London. I was walking down Brewer Street. I was like, this man walking towards me looks exactly like Ben Mendelsohn.
And it was.
Lo and behold, it's fucking Ben Mendelsohn.
I love that.
Sure.
What was he doing? What was he doing in Brewer Street?
He was like with his kids. He was just like with his kids and like family, I think. Maybe he was finishing up this. Do they do this here? I don't know. Who knows? Who knows?
Anyway, so that's what I'm looking forward to. And yeah, if anyone wants to tell us what they're watching, that would be amazing.
Yeah, please do. Get in touch. We are, you know, our well is drying up. So, we do need some good stuff. The Cannes Film Festival's on. The Idol is... I think I'm going to hate watch it, maybe.
Yeah, I think...
It just seems deeply problematic. It just seems, I think... on many
I think levels. Also, I think the most scathing criticism I heard was that it was like the most insincere attempt to be horny. That like they just can't.
I'll be the judge of that.
Just all very like somebody said it was all kind of very like, ooh, are you offended yet? Like, ooh, she's giving him a blowjob. Like, post Me Too, and it's all just like guys are trying so hard to be like, but it just feels. I don't know.
Yeah, I just don't dig the press run that they've done for it as well. Like Lily Rose Depp, like smoking and kind of like it's just like, this is the first thing she's been in, and it's kind of like, she ain't a star. You know, this isn't. She's not Bridget Bardot. And
also The Weeknd, like he did this interview where he was like, I had to cancel a concert because I forgot how to sing, and I think it was because I was so in the character of my character who can't sing. That I forgot how to sing, and I was like,
you absolute bellend.
It's giving. He thinks he's like Jeremy Strong, but he's not. But even Jeremy Strong would be like, that's a bit on the nose. And I just
mentioning Jeremy Strong in lieu of anything else, and if you've finished listening to The Sound of Succession, go and listen to the official Succession podcast. Jeremy Strong was on it, talking about the funeral episode, and actually, what a nice guy. Like, I was expecting like a difficult kind of like, oh, you just don't understand me. What a nice guy.
No, I do think he's. I mean, everyone did sort of laugh at his methods, but it is funny. It's comical how seriously he takes it, but also the work speaks for itself. And I think like,
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He seems like an incredibly hardworking, incredibly conscientious actor. And I don't know if I'll necessarily be drawn to him in many other things, but
maybe. Yeah. I think I read somewhere, was it in one of those profile pieces where he was like Heath Ledger's like daughter's guardian, and there was a really sweet sidebar that he helped her and Heath Ledger's widow, whose name escapes me,
Michelle
Williams, like helped him through the death and has always been there for him, and what a nice guy.
Seems like a good guy.
Anyway, God, we've done it again, haven't we? 15 minutes in, and we've not even begun to talk about arguably
chatty Cathy's over here.
I know. Well, we miss each other. It's been a few days. Should we do it? So we'll do season 8, episode 3 now, and then we'll have a break, and then we'll come back and do season 4. Two extremely, you could not get two more different episodes.
Different, yeah. I was just thinking that.
I mean, you couldn't. I mean, okay, so let's just crack on. So, The Long Night. I still, I watched it, loved it. Still, arguably, should have been the last, maybe the penultimate episode of Game of Thrones.
Yeah,
I think this should have been episode 5 or 6.
Yeah, I think this is where they should have ended it. Absolutely, because what follows feels like a slog.
Well, yeah, there were a few highlights in episode 4, but yes, it was like, what a it was the emptying the bin bags of bottles into the recycling the day after a great party.
Very cleaning vomit off the walls feeling for me. But this episode is really stunning, and yeah. I
loved that it was literally episode 2, end of episode 2, we heard the horn blowing and it was just straight in there. It was still nighttime. They're all still presumably pissed.
This is the thing about this show. Like, I cannot get my head around how drunk they all are. Or like they haven't slept. And I'm like, guys, I cannot even like function without a cup of coffee at 7 a.m.
Yeah. And
you guys are like, I'm just gonna, but it must be adrenaline, right? It must be.
Got to be adrenaline, unless we probably just don't see the kind of, there must be a trestle table, some bacon rolls on, or, a few Nespresso pods knocking around. There must be.
Just even a few lines of like Winterfell Coke to get you going.
Chris. I don't think they do Coke. They do mushrooms. Well,
if it was Winterfell, it would just be smoking really weird tree bark.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Yeah. Tormund
it's a bit of a
Tormund would have some proper hallucinogenic.
A little tablespoon of like whale blubber that they'd sort of
fermented, buried it under a tree for 20 years.
Anyway,
so we open up. Miguel Sapochnik directed it, as he always does. R.I.P. Miguel. Game of Thrones, come back, Miguel. Love a scared Samwell. Everyone loves a scared Samwell.
Yeah.
And what it did this episode, about 3 or 4 times maybe, it was really clever in its establishing where everyone is, how they're feeling, and what they're doing. Like, I think maybe 2 or 3 times there's like a tracking shot or a one shot.
Yeah.
And we open with one where it's just like Dragonglass getting ready. There's like people like buckling up and taking deep breaths and side-eyeing everybody, and I do love that as a mechanic in Game of Thrones. They do that really, really well.
I loved, and we talked about it last week, but the way that they've used the intro to set up the kind of interiority of Winterfell, so that we understand when Sansa is in the crypt, or if someone is in the library, or if someone is in the Great Hall, you sort of understand where it is. I do think, one thing I would say, what I liked about rewatching it is still confusing, but the confusion is the point. Whereas I think first time I watched it, I was going, where are they going now? Where is that? What's going on?
Right.
But
okay,
I think when you sort of are not as stressed about catching everything, because you sort of know where it's going to go, you can sort of lean into the, it's quite foggy at times. It's the camera's actually not, there's points where there's these tracking shots and it feels like the show's not trying to hold your hand. And I do think at the time they got criticized for that. And I think I watched it again like last week and I was like, I kind of see what the idea. It's supposed to be like a war film. It's supposed to be like Dunkirk or something like that. And I appreciated that a lot more this time. Just the intention behind some of the direction.
There's some really clever directorial decisions made in this episode. Number one, and it only occurred to me watching this episode, it must have been the same for all of the battles and everything in fact, is that all of the principal characters are the only ones that don't wear helmets. So that you can see who they are. So you go, there's Brienne, there's John, there's Ed. There's all these. It's like, no wonder that so many fucking died. It's because they're the only ones not wearing bloody helmets.
I know.
And I forgot how good. How good. I may be jumping ahead a bit. I'd forgotten about Melisandre coming back and casting the spell on all the Dothraki swords, and that's
to sort of light them up, right?
Shot of lighting them up like old Derek Dondarrions, and just how clever it was to show the might of the Whites and the White Walkers by nothing other than seeing flames blow out. It must have been. It was such a clever budgetary decision, I would imagine.
Yeah.
It's like, well, how can we can't do like loads of set pieces of thousands of Dothraki horses fighting Whites who are also all CGI'd. I know. We'll have all you'll see is from a distance a crescent of flames running in and getting blown out.
It's one of those things where it's a very, as you said, it's a very clever way of establishing the stakes. It is kind of, I remember going like, oh my God, all these flaming swords, like, we're going to be all right. And then
it was such a cool
minutes
moment.
later, it's just like, no. Those Dothraki though, like, can we just give a shout out to the Dothraki? They came all the way over. Most of them just get completely wiped out. I mean,
within an hour. Yeah.
And they've come over because they just love Daenerys. Like, she flexed, she like conquered all the different Dothraki groups. They've come over across the sea, which they've never done in history.
Probably hated it. Yeah.
They probably hate it. They're all seasick.
Freezing.
Their horses are shitting themselves everywhere. Yeah. And they finally go into battle and most of them get killed. It's so rubbish.
They did not do well. Yeah.
But
after all of that.
I thought, I mean, I was just saying, I kind of my feelings on it are definitely softened. I like it. I liked it more than I think I did at the time. Even though I loved it at the time, I feel like I appreciate it in lots of new ways. I mean, what was it like for you kind of doing a rewatch? Are you in the same headspace as me?
What, rewatching this?
Yeah.
Yeah, I loved it. I mean, I think it's one of my favourite episodes. I just found it so satisfying. It's like you say, it's part war, it's part Dunkirk, it's part Tomb Raider, it's part Doom.
It's like a horror film at some point.
Yeah. It's like playing a computer game. Plus, I found it deeply satisfying on an emotional level because we get resolution. We lose some great characters that we'd forgotten. I forgot Ed died. I'd forgotten. I'd forgotten how much I enjoyed just the drama of it all, and the music, and the hopelessness, and the way that it built tension up. The bits that annoyed me still annoyed me a little bit.
What were the bits that annoyed you?
It's difficult. You know, Bran, it's difficult not to be annoyed by the slight kind of plot hole that they had to sort out, which was like they had to have this target. There has to be a bullseye. There has to be a bottleneck of drama somewhere. So like sticking Bran in the weirwood, by the weirwood tree, and him just going, "What? I have to go now." And it's just like, really? You could maybe not. You know, you don't have to. You're not. You know, there's bits like. Bran just didn't really need to be there other than just to be the target. And it just felt a bit odd. It's like the bit where he walked into Ravens, didn't do anything.
That was something I was going to ask about, that when he did that, I was like, oh shit. And then I was like, what is he doing?
Yeah, he didn't do anything. He just had a look. And he didn't tell anybody either. You know, he wasn't passing. The thing is, that's the annoying thing. It's like, he could have gone, right, well, they're all up there. They're on this hill. You've got the Night King's somewhere else. The White Walkers are flanking, blah, blah, blah. And they could have gone, right, well, we need to do this. You know, at least help you guys out. And I know there's a bit like, well, what will pass will pass. You're a good man, Theon. All of that kind of stuff. But it just annoyed me a bit.
I do think what I found on the rewatch, though, is like understanding that like the only reason that the Night King's there is because of Bran does help contextualize like why anything is happening. But Theon, I actually found Theon being like, I'll protect you to make up for what I did at Winterfell and back in season 2. That actually did work for me a lot more than it did at the time.
I loved Theon's.
I was like, you're like the step sibling, you're fake family. Like you're not like an actual Stark. The thing that if there's one thing that bugs me, and there is more than one thing, but if I'm just going to start on one thing, it's like Arya jumping out of nowhere, killing the Night King, right? Okay. I don't mind her killing the Night King. She's very good at killing people. Yeah. But couldn't she have timed it a bit sooner so that Theon didn't get killed? Like, it's just so like...
Well, maybe, I think I was watching this and trying to work out Arya through this and following her movements, because she kind of like goes through quite a few stages of... We see quite a few different Aryas. And it wasn't until Melisandre gave her a destiny, or rather helped her decode the riddle that she'd given her a few seasons back.
Back in season 3.
Is that what it was?
We didn't watch it. We haven't done it on our rewatch, but it's the one where they climb the wall, the climb.
Got you. Okay.
Jon and Ygritte. And she says, you will close many eyes.
Brown, green, and blue. Yeah.
And she says it this episode, and she emphasizes the blue. And I think, okay,
and then it was like then she also said, "What do we say to the god of death?"
Today,
which kind of reminded. I think she reminded Arya that even though she's back at Winterfell, she's still the faceless assassin. She still has those moves. She still has those tricks up her sleeve.
Remember your training. I mean, I think like Arya's training and Arya's journey has been one of the most like consistent, in the sense that she's always been learning how to be a killer. Yeah. And she's killed death. I mean, that's just like the most amazing end to her sort of arc. Yeah. But I do think that I can't tell when Melisandre said that line to her in season 3. I mean, they didn't know they were going to do this. So I do find it frustrating that...
Don't you think?
I mean, they can't have known then, surely. But I sort of love the idea.
I don't know how you can. I don't know if you're Daniel and David. If you're like 2 seasons in, writing the 3rd, you know you've got a hit on your hands by then. You must have had a conversation where it's gone like, okay, wouldn't it be great if? It's
the thing is,
or talking to George about it. It's like, well, what's Arya's thing? Because we know that X, Y, Z in the book. She's training to be this assassin. She's got this list. She's trained to be a killer. Bran's going to be we know that George has told us that Bran's going to be the guy on the throne. We know that
the other thing is Blue Eyes doesn't say the Night King. It just means White Walkers, right? So I guess the line is kind of clever because it's sort of, it could be that she will be important against the White Walkers, but then what she does is she does the ultimate closing of the Blue Eyes, which is she kills the main man.
Right, yeah.
So it's actually kind of, there's more to it. It's not like Melisandre was like, you're going to kill the Night King. Because I think if she'd done something that was that specific, I'd have been like, really?
Yeah, but I loved Melisandre coming back in this episode. For me, it brought that magic back, and she redeemed herself, you know, for all her kind of like fuck ups. She kind of she redeemed herself. There was a lot of people that just, no one died an ignoble death in this.
I do think though I'd like more people to have died. I thought the deaths, Theon aside, I thought most of them I was like,
Well, Lady Mormont.
Lady Mormont, that was the most, probably one of the most surprising for me, because I thought they would want to keep Bella Ramsey around and have her be like the next queen of Bear Island or whatever. So I was surprised at her. Theon and Jorah, good, but I think with Jorah, I mean, he's been ill for so long. He's been banished so many times. I was like, this guy is going.
It was almost certain that he was going to die saving Daenerys' life as well. I mean, that was kind of preordained, wasn't it?
Yeah. Your man, Derek, fine. I don't feel like that was a big sad moment for me.
But yeah, it's like we mentioned before. It's kind of like going into this, we were like, oh my god, how many people are going to?
Yeah. I kind of really. I think the thing I think about when we were watching earlier seasons is there was a lot of bite. Like the people you really didn't want to die would die, or not even just that, but like if you think about Oberyn Martell dying, it was like it was the most, like it was such a problematic death because it made everything worse for everyone. Do you know what I mean? It really set the cat amongst the pigeons. Whereas none of these deaths really do, because everyone burns them in the next episode and then sort of moves on. I think a really good example would be if Jaime could have died. Cersei then is like even more incensed that like, you know, she didn't say goodbye. They ended on bad terms. I think that would have been
Brienne
good.
dying would have made Jaime incensed.
Brienne, before having this kind of reunion, but this meeting of minds with Arya again or Jaime, like I would have loved her to be a bit more like someone being robbed of something.
Yeah. No, you're
and
right.
I do think some of it, but also they want, at this point in the show, they want everyone to have a big moment. And you know, you have a fan base, you have a show, like a universe. You want to give them all a big send off. I get it. It's really, you know, it's a bit like with, you know, Endgame. Oh, you end Infinity War, like loads of people die, and then they all come back, and you're like, oh yeah, I guess everyone wants to have their like nice moment at the end.
Yeah.
Obviously, there were some big characters that died in Endgame, like Tony Stark. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I'm just saying, like, you know, there wasn't really that many casualties, even though there was like 36 superheroes hanging out. But it is better. It was a lot better than I thought. I thought that the bits I really loved were the interior shots. Like Tyrion was great. Arya running through the library. Very The Last of Us. Yeah. Very The Last of Us.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Yeah.
And that's before I even watched The Last. You know, you watch it now and you're like, oh, this is just so interesting. I tell you what I would say, if I'm going to be a bit rude, I don't think it needed to be 80 minutes long.
No, you're right. There was probably 10-15 minutes of just battle for battle's sake. I think, although it's like the trench bit was good. You know, the fact that they realised that they'd planned this, but then they hadn't accounted for the cloud of ice, the fog that the Night King was going to bring, and Daenerys couldn't see the trench and couldn't see their signals. I really enjoyed that, and also that again, it just added weight in a couple of scenes just to show you because I think the problem was that they were fighting a battle that they thought they could win by just fighting them and beating all of their people. Yes. Whereas actually what was always going to be the case was that it was never about that. It was about the Night King. And they ever since they realised that Jon realised that, or Sam realised that you can kill a Night Walker with a dragon glass or Valyrian steel, and they've only kind of guessed by killing that White Walker that then killed all the whites around it in this. That if they killed the whole Night King, killing the Night King thing was just a theory. It was just kind of like a maybe if we kill him, everyone dies. That. So it's but it's go on. My point was that there were lots of things where like, oh, we're going to do this, we're going to flank them. They're never going to beat them, and that the trench scene was really good at showing them that. Where it's just like the Night King was just like, okay, they're just going to stop there because there's fire, so they're just standing there looking at you. The Night King's like, no, fuck this. Okay, I've got about 3 million of them, so they're just kind of like it's like a swarming of ants, like just sacrificing one so that one can climb on top of the other, and you realise that actually there's no hope for them, and it took. And my one problem with it, and it's a timing thing, was just like, this would have been over in 5 minutes. Like this would genuinely have been over in 5 minutes. If that was true to course, there's no way that they'd have just swarmed it. Like in World War Z, when you see the zombies the climbing the wall in Israel, that's just what would have happened here.
Yeah, for sure. I think you're right though. I like the fact that they hit a few duds when they're trying to figure out how to do things. It does feel for like a good portion of the episode, like maybe at least the first third, maybe even the second third, where it's not working. And it does, I think at the first time I watched it, I was like, this is so frustrating. But now you watch it and I really didn't remember a lot of the beats of what happened.
No,
really.
I forgot about the trench, and I forgot about the swords, and
I forgot about like Jon and Daenerys like getting lost and going up above the clouds, and then the Night King, really sort of stuff. I'll tell you something I love though, and I've always said this when we talk about battles on this show, is like the people in the castle always have some of the most interesting bits of character development, and I loved Sansa, going inside, Arya giving her the dragon glass dagger and saying, she goes, I don't know how to use it, and she goes, stick them with the pointy end. And it can be a little like, that Simpsons meme where they're like, say the line, Bart. Yeah, he goes, I didn't do it. And they go, wait. And people do it when you see like someone in the newspaper that's like, I got on the property ladder at 19. And you go, say the line. And then they go, my mum and dad did give me £100 million. And it's like, hey. Yay. Sometimes when they do quote themselves on a show like Thrones, I'm a bit like, oh, here we go. But when I heard that one, I was like, I love this.
Because she was doing it for herself for more than anything, it's kind of like it, and it was also the logical line. It's just like
it's also like the whole thing that Bran is trying to kind of like introduce, and the thing that the Night King wants to extinguish is knowledge. Like, you have this memory now. This means something to you. Like, I've passed this on to you in the way that I was told how to do it by Jon. There's stuff like that is really charming. Also, Sansa's conversation with Tyrion about their marriage.
Loved it.
It is one of the things that season 8 gets really well is these moments where you feel really rewarded for being there the whole time. I mean, I get thinking Sansa and Tyrion were married for like 5 days, but her looking back on that is like, that you were one of the good ones. You were nice to me. You've always been nice to me, and it might have worked out actually. If I'd had to stuck around. And I was like, oh, I get quite emotional sometimes thinking of these like sliding doors moments where what would it have looked like if Santa hadn't fled? What would it have looked like if she had got pregnant and had a family with him? Things like that are just really lovely.
One thing that occurred to me watching this as well was Daenerys almost pretty much a bit part player in this episode, to be fair. She was and with this and episode 4, which we'll talk about in a minute, she's actually really bad at anything that doesn't involve her saying Dracarys. She's just not a very good leader, you know?
No, I think because at this point she's a commander, and I think she is quite a good political maneuverer, but this is
but with brute force.
Yeah.
You know,
that's true. She is good at brute force. She is good at blowing shit up.
It's always been brute force. She's never really negotiated a way through anything.
No, I just mean more that like her narrative is like PR gold, right?
Yeah.
Like I conquered, I freed, my assistant was a slave, and I pay her like a living. You know, she's got a good yarn, but you can't do that. But I thought, just because the story necessitates it, Jon is like riding a dragon like he's been doing it all his life.
Yeah.
And Daenerys does suffer in this episode. I also thought, you know, maybe this is just from us watching House of the Dragon, but I thought, God, if you were her, you would have learned how to use a weapon by this point. If you're going to be this like warrior queen.
This is what I mean. She fell off the dragon. She's on the floor. She didn't know what the fuck to do. She just kind of went to pieces. And it's like, you got Lady Mormont.
This has never happened before.
You got Lady Mormont, but it hadn't. That's the point.
This is it, yeah.
She was so out of her depth, you know, because she's never had to, you know, you fuck about, you find out. And that was the first time that had occurred, that had happened, where there was no dragon there and a load of fucking people wanting to kill her. And if it wasn't for Jorah, she'd have been obviously absolute toast. But so I think this was actually the start of her bitterness. You know, Jon and Dany, they'd already gone to bed on an argument. They were barely speaking at the beginning of this, were they? So it's like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, because there's all this problem. Literally, as the horn blew at the end of episode 2, he's like, "I've got a better claim than you."
Yeah, I know you mentioned Arya, the killing the Night King. The 5 minutes leading up to that, or maybe the 2 or 3 minutes leading up to that, were just electrifying TV. It was just fucking great, because even watching it now, I was like, oh my God, we all thought that Jon was going to be the one all the way through. We were teased that Jon would see the Night King and be like, right, I'm following him. And even, you know, when the Night King's like stood in front of Bran and Jon's still trying to get past the dragon, and the dragon just keeps battering him back down. You're like, fuck, what? Oh my God, how's he going to get? He's got to get round the corner and through that door yet. And the Night King's right. I was still kind of like, half of you is like, wow. So I just loved it. And Jon, leading up to that moment, there's another of that establishing shots where you just knew that they were fucked. You had Grey Worm on his back, you had Brienne and Jaime against the wall, you had Sam, he was torn for a moment, Jon, like Sam was about to be killed, and he was like, I love you, I can't, this is the thing I've got to do. I loved that moment. And you know, I will forever go back and watch reaction videos of Arya killing the Night King on YouTube, because it's just fucking great. It is really good. Sometimes you just need to be a bit Hollywood, and
for sure.
And the whole, it was like, oh, it's Arya, she's jumped. Oh, that bit, forgetting that he could probably have just crushed her neck, like, and be done with it. But just the drop of the move that Syrio taught her. It was just brilliant. It was just brilliant. I loved it. If anything, the problem was that it's like killed. That's it, done. It was almost too, because the Night King doesn't have a personality. There was no emotional payoff from seeing him realizing he'd lost. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just turned to glass and exploded. And
I think, I mean, it's not that they could have done it any different, but I think
no, exactly.
It really suffers from a lack of. I'm like, you know, you just don't. There's a really empty feeling from it, and I think, I was watching it and I was like, what does the Night King think is going on? He's got this like enemy, and he's like, okay, you were an old man, you're now in a wheelchair, and you're like 19.
Yeah,
but you're the same guy.
Inner monologue? Yeah, what's his inner monologue?
Right, I'm like, what's he thinking?
He's like, and what's his voice? How does the Night King talk?
I think like really Scandinavian.
Well, like maybe Matsson from Succession. So he's up to Bran. So he's walked up to Bran. He's like, privacy, pussy, pasta, Raven.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just going to take my time. Yeah.
But I think it's just kind of interesting. I mean, it doesn't have any feelings. That's the whole point. It's like watching a dog eat a string of sausages.
You wanted Alan Rickman falling off the tower in Die Hard. That's what you wanted, you know?
Yeah, and I think also it does feel like if it doesn't mean anything to him when this is happening. I mean, honestly, there's all he's never seen a Dothraki before, right? Is he going, what the fuck is this? What are these guys doing?
Why haven't they got their tops on? It's freezing.
Even dragons, right? So has he even met a dragon before? You know, one of them flew over the wall last season and he just went, do you know what? I'm just going to kill that.
Yeah.
Got it in one.
Javelin. I've had these javelins for ages.
Never seen it before. And then just goes, do you know what? I might have that. And then he goes, oh, it breathes fire. The fire's blue. Okay. And then he just goes, do you know what? I'm just going to fly this, even though it's got holes in its wings.
Have we got a chain anywhere? Yeah. That's actually
getting into our season 7, like, and another thing.
But yeah, and I get you. That's what was missing. There was the hole there. That it wasn't satisfying in the fact that we saw the enemy suffer, and also realize that they'd lost. It was just like, but it's a little bit Tony Soprano.
It is a little bit, yeah. But I think also I just sort of wonder if, like, I know that they decided that the Night King created everything, so it ends with him, but like a White Walker being able to create another White Walker feels like that could have meant that, like, there's 5 White Walkers we have to kill. So Jon and Daenerys going
could have
over
taken
here.
one. Yeah.
Arya's doing one. Brienne's doing one. Because the thing about it is, and again, in the grand scheme of things, you know, we're recording this on Wednesday evening. The sun is out. The birds are singing. Life is good. Okay? In the grand scheme of things. But I'm like, why the fuck did they all have Valyrian steel swords? Why does Valyrian steel... You know, I'm counting them, going, oh my god, Jaime's got one. Jorah's got one. Da-da-da-da. And you're like, so none of you really needed them after all.
After all that.
Because you just needed one person.
After them all tipping the wink. Like, oh, Valyrian
But if this is the thing, I remember going into the final season and I was like, okay, so there's 7 Valyrian steel swords in existence. Where's Joffrey's old one? Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm going like, they're all. Well, there were
think pieces written about it, for God's sake. There were tons. I probably wrote some of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I think there was a Wired piece that was like, where are all the Valyrian steel?
Yeah. I wondered. I mean, it'd be great. I think if there's one thing we know, though, is that the people that were involved in this season are still very raw about this season. I think, you know, the principal cast haven't even watched House of the Dragons, so they say it's still too soon. It still feels like home. And I hope that for some anniversary that there's like a Harry Potter style reunion where they can just be candid and where they can admit that some mistakes were made, or they can express some frustration, or that this, that, and the other. And maybe Daniel and David could actually go, yeah, you know what? Actually, we did it. We did write a draft where Jaime kills one, and this happens, and you could go, oh my god, that'd be so cool. And you know,
yeah, I'd love to know.
I don't think you would lose anything from that, having that.
I think they got dealt a really rough hand, because this. I
mean, they dealt themselves a really rough hand, to be fair.
But what I was going to say though is just that like Twitter was just really loud,
horrible
then, and it's not now.
No, that's
true.
it
is for different reasons, but like, you know, no one's really going on House of the Dragon on Twitter in the same way. I mean, if you go on Reddit, the subreddits are crazy with people that are like, oh my god, like this actress is too pretty to play this character, or this act, you know. There's stuff like that. But I do think one of the things that was so difficult with season 8, I mean, remember the coffee cup? Right. They airbrushed that out within like 24 hours because it was so embarrassing and they were getting so much shit from people.
And then did it again with a water bottle the next episode.
Yeah. But like, it's one of those things that like, I find it mortifying that, you know, to get that done on the streaming service, to get it changed that quickly, to get your VFX house to whatever, it must have cost a fucking fortune. And it was just that it was like, right, we have to fix this. that period of the internet being really mad at the show, I do sort of wonder whether if the show was on now, if it just wouldn't get the same blowback. I mean, so I feel for them in a way, because I just think it was like the stakes were just so
well, the stakes were high, but also they hadn't. I don't think they were really prepared for it.
No,
you know, and I certainly don't think so. I don't. You know, and I had to say, look, this is not a criticism of anyone, because it was a first. It was never before had there been this level of excitement or expectation. There was, you know, there must have been some duty of care put in place for the cast, because it must.
You'd hope so.
It must have been absolutely fucking miserable. I've spoken personally to 2 or 3 members of the cast since, where they're still kind of like, oof, Jesus Christ.
Yeah, I just think it's a shame. Like, there's working on the show which they might have gone, oh my God, I'm not sure about this. But I think a lot of them spoke about, like, the thing that was stressing them out was, I don't know what the fans are going to make of this.
Yeah, which
like,
is bad.
They're so, and it's not their fault. It's the symptomatic of the show. But they're not even shooting, and they're going, oh my God, like Jacob Targaryen 27903 is going to tear my fucking face off when he sees this.
Yeah.
I think it's really rough. But I think, yeah, I mean, I'm sure, was it Amelia that said in an interview that when she read the script, she just went off for like a walk for like 3 hours after finding out what happened.
Yeah. I mean, it must be tough. It must be really hard. But look, you know what? I defended it at the time, season 8, against. I got quite angry about and I still stand by it. It was just like, everyone gets, and we'll talk about. Actually, you know what? We'll leave it because it's about the end. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, we'll save it for the end. But I'm with you. I gave the final episode 5 stars.
Yeah.
Out of 5. Because if you take it as an episode of television, this is the best thing to do with the constituent parts from the previous episode. Yeah. I mean, you can, and I also, I've said this before on Succession, I've said this multiple times to you and elsewhere, endings are really hard, and they're not really where I think the best work is done. But we have this idea that the ending is the biggest and best and the culmination of everything. And I think this going into Succession, I know it's going to be amazing, but I'm like, the best bit, it's like sort of going up at the end of the roller coaster is not the best part either. That's where everything sort of, you go back into the station and it's
yeah.
The bit like a third of the way in, you know, Succession's second season, when everything's just, they're figuring out where they can push it. That's like electrifying.
Yeah, 100%.
The final season, it's just, this is when you come back down to earth and you have to end it at some point. So yeah, but I think they did a good job. I think they really did.
They did. You know what? And I think we've probably done right. We've done 50 minutes on episode 3. I don't think episode 4 is going to take quite as long, because
no, I don't think so.
It was I mean,
any closing thoughts on this episode? Yeah.
No, I think I'll stick with my statement. Just like, should have been the last episode, full stop. Should have ended with the Night King dying. I just, you know, what a fucking great hour and a half of television. It was satisfying. It's a decade of plot led up to that episode. You know, the rest of it, I could, you know, most of what follows, I can give a take. You know,
me too.
So for me, this is this is the accumulation of like why the cat's paw dagger was important, why Syrio taught the water dance to Arya, why she became a faceless man, why, you know, all of that stuff, everything that I loved about Game of Thrones led up to this episode. So
yeah, I think I would say, like, you know, it's an amazing feat to have attempted and mostly succeeded pulling this off. Like, most people won't try and make a show this expensive ever again, or not for a long time. It's amazing this exists. Whether it works in its totality or not doesn't matter. Like, this was a time when people spent 55 days filming a battle for an episode of television. Yeah. I mean, that is fucking ridiculous. The other thing I would say, you know, one of my main feelings about this season as a reflection is, when you have 6 episodes and 6 episodes only, you can't have 2 whole episodes just being fights. Like, because next episode, which we'll get into in a sec, it has all the character, because there was no room for it last episode. And I'm like, it's just too heavy-handed and it's too unbalanced.
Well, yeah, because then we have another episode which is all a fight, and
exactly. Next episode is some of the best, development, character stuff, but it's like 30 courses of your favorite meal, and you're like,
and you can't do any of it justice. The Last of the Starks, and I guess that's all centered around the fact that John just cannot fucking lie. He cannot just do sometimes you have to tell a white lie just to keep the peace. He can't do that, and as it transpires, Sansa can't keep a secret either. And we start off at the beginning of this with the burning of the dead, and we end with the rage of Daenerys. What were your takeaways overall from this episode?
I think like I prefer this kind of stuff to the battles. So this is, I think, a preferred episode for me in terms of like a lot of things moving forward. I think there's lots of exciting development. I thought all the stuff with the funeral, the burning of the bodies.
What did Daenerys whisper to Jorah, do we think?
Oh, I can't remember.
Do we know?
We should check. The thing is, it's effective, but there's also a little bit of a sense of we have to crack on to the next problem, and the characters have that conversation essentially, don't they?
Yeah, and I think my problem with that is that the next problem just isn't very sexy.
Cersei is someone who suffers from this season because she's got nothing to do and she's got no one to bounce off except that fucking pirate
Qyburn.
And it's a shame because she, there were points, I think around season 4, this felt like the Lannister show because they were all in the capital and they were all doing their own sort of version of like dysfunctional family. And now you look at her and it's like, there's nothing for you to do, and that's a real shame. I like this episode a lot. I think what I really love is the way that like Gendry gets legitimized, and there's lots of these little things. Now they're just, again, like, this is what I mean when I say I enjoy it. They're not huge in the grand scheme of things because we don't see the fruits of that legitimization. But I love that, there's this sense that she talks a big game about breaking the wheel, but here she is carefully rebuilding it with all the pieces that she
just to fit
smashed.
her to fit her stagecoach. Yeah, exactly.
It's really smart though, because he's now in debt to you, she's in service to you, and you do sort of think, well, there's no Baratheons left. I mean, I kind of wonder, like, all these castles that no one's been in for 3 years. I'm like, who's in them?
Yeah, exactly.
Who's in them?
Is there like house sitters? Is it like a holiday home in Cornwall, or is it just the people from the WI just go around every week just to make sure?
There must be some old like really poor family that's like, oh, the Baratheons have gone, like we've just like moved in.
Yeah, exactly. It's just
like our like sigil is a hippo. And they're like, who are you guys? And they're like, well, look, no one's really been checking in. We've just
I'm Gendry Baratheon.
Yeah.
Who? Sorry, what? No. I've not seen anyone.
Peter Hippo.
Update on Daenerys Whisper.
Oh, what is it?
So in the script, it said Daenerys whispers something to him that he'll never hear and we'll never know. Emilia Clarke apparently wrote her own lines for the part, and only 2 people know what she wrote, her and Ian Glenn. Ian Glenn said, it's something entirely sincere and true to the moment and something that I'll never forget. And he says, I'll always cherish it because it's something that no one will ever know but the 2 of us, and that's a memory to hold on to. I call bullshit.
Yeah, I feel a bit like
I don't
guys,
believe
it's not that deep.
It's not lost in it's not fucking lost in translation whisper. I don't think. No offense to Emilia Clarke, I don't think she crafted a sonnet of.
Well, it's just what it's gonna be like. Thank you, or like you're my everything, or like good night, sweet prince.
You're the moon to my stars.
Yeah.
I
don't like that. The thing I really hated in this episode. Should I do more nice things before I'm really mean?
No, just stick the boot in, then redeem yourself.
Okay, here's someone else suffers really badly in this episode. Bronn.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I hate
awful
just because they're like, we need We need someone in peril at some point. Because
but also, it's just like we've got Bronn still at the pub.
So Bronn says to Tyrion and Jaime, I have to kill you, guys. Sorry, I have to kill you. And you're like, oh my God, he's going to kill them. And then they go, do you want Highgarden? And he's like, and you're like, well, you don't have Highgarden, really.
Yeah.
And that's going to take ages. And like the thing about Bronn, they gave him a really nice castle after the Battle of the Blackwater. And then when Jaime goes to Dawn, he's like, come on, I'll get you an even bigger one. After a certain point, you'd just be like, I mean, how big a fucking castle do you want? But Highgarden is like one of the most valuable castles and one of the most valuable seats, right? And they're just like, yeah, do you want that? It's like, sorry, you can't just give any old shit to any old dickhead.
Also, the fact that Bronn had double-crossed Tyrion, and gone back on that, I didn't buy it. They built up they spent a long time building up that friendship.
I know, this is, I feel they threw away so much character development because
But also, if you had done that to Jaime and Tyrion, they're going, okay, have Highgarden. He'd be like, yeah, all right, then great. See you later. Jaime would have been like, second he's out, can someone just shoot him in the back of the head with an arrow and just kill him? And then it's not a problem anymore.
This is the thing. Like, wouldn't you just say to Arya, like, can you just go and stab him in the face?
Exactly.
Like,
put on one of them faces and just kill him.
That would have been amazing if Jaime just goes,
yeah,
I'm Arya.
Not today.
Yeah. And this is what I mean about them sort of trying to have their cake and eat it. Like, Bronn shouldn't still be around. Or if he does, he sort of acts with a bit more, not integrity, but like, it just doesn't track that he'd be like, oh, I really want Highgarden. So
but also that you rock up the day after that battle. And it doesn't sit.
I really hated it. And it really, you don't need peril.
And there was meant to be, and I didn't like the fact that we were all meant to go, oh my God, it's the crossbow. It's like, there's no way,
Was it the one that Tyrion shot Tywin with?
Yeah. And we were kind of meant to kind of go, oh, I get it. Oh,
it's the crossbow. Yeah, I know. I found that really frustrating.
Yeah.
Bronn definitely has suffered and they don't know what to do with him. And I think if you don't know what to do with someone, kill them off.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot of really interesting stuff about like Jon. So virtuous.
Bronn. You would have had Bronn turn up the night before, have that conversation with them, and then taken part in the battle and died honourably saving Tyrion's life. That's what you would have done with Bronn.
I think like this just so it just doesn't. Sometimes the show, and this is mean, but sometimes it feels like it's lost some of the logic, and sometimes it feels like I feel like I'm watching like a Guy Ritchie film. Do you know what I mean? Like it's just a bit schlocky.
It felt so out of place for all three of them. And bear in mind that, that scene started with Tyrion asking Jaime what Brienne's fanny was like.
I know. Brienne, no. This is the thing, right? It's all just a bit much because it's like, right, now we got to go and get the Brienne and Jaime drama in there, which like, I think it's sort of sweet that they did it. Like all of the like, she sort of like, he runs away and she's like, oh, and
I'd misremembered. Really... Yeah, I'd misremembered all of that. In my mind, Jaime had just done a runner in the night after they'd slept together for the first time.
I just remember what I thought at the time as well.
I'd forgot that there was like an actual conversation about it, and I get it. You know what? I got it a bit more this time around that I saw Jaime's turmoil, and I understood more why Jaime did it. I just didn't like it still. I just kind of, it really did Brienne dirty. And it was just
I think also it would have been really powerful if he hadn't done this. Like, run to Cersei, gone back, he's yo-yoed so much. And I think this is what I found with Bronn, like, betraying people. It's like, this feels like it's happened before. So I feel like you don't get the sort of pleasure from the plot twist or the character development. Because it's like, I just knew, Jaime was never going to like marry Brienne. So you're sort of like, oh, he's going to go back to Cersei because what else is he going to do? But then you know that he's not going to commit to that. And I think it just feels a bit flip floppy at times. Like there's just they're just trying to the well that they're tapping to get drama is just sort of drier and drier. And I think that it's that feeling that actually Harry Potter did, where it was like everyone gets a very specific ending. You know, it's like you've probably been wondering what happened to Neville, and I'm like, not really. No. Well, he married a woman whose name is this, and she's and then they had 3 children called this, this, and this, and you're like, okay. And then
I didn't need that. Yeah.
You're probably wondering what happened to Dean, Harry's friend, and you're like, no. Well, he had 4 children, and then and I feel Game of Thrones did that a little bit, where they're like everyone is getting like main character syndrome.
Yeah, I mean, there was a nice goodbye. I enjoyed saying goodbye to Tormund in this episode. I did.
And Ghost, Joan gives him Ghost, doesn't he?
Yeah, one-eared Ghost.
Yes, I forgot about the. I mean that sort of. I don't know. Ghost like went charging in with the Dothraki.
Yeah.
And was like the only thing that survived.
He survived.
Missed an ear.
Yeah.
But that really, I sort of forgot that Tormund was like, okay, we're done now, and they go and hang and they just live.
Yeah, and also he told, he said there's a bit of foreshadowing for Jon there as well, wasn't there? You belong north. It's like to most people, this is the north.
Yeah, this is my old gripe with Sheffield all over again. Like, it is technically the north, but it's not. But so I think for me, like, now that the White Walkers are gone, which I'm sorry, but like, given that no one's been all the way up to the north, I'd be a bit like, are we sure?
Are we sure they're all gone? Yeah.
Are we sure we're gonna? Because I'd be like, oh, I think I might. I thought Tormund could have like the Dreadfort, like where the Boltons were. Like maybe he can have a castle, and his pals can. But he's like, no, I think I'd like to be in the coldest part of the continent where like some people just die from the cold. I think I'd like to go back there.
Yeah.
But then I thought, because the Night King's gone, is it not as cold anymore?
Oh, true. Yeah, good point.
But anyway, that was that. Lots of foreshadowing in there in terms of like, where Jon's going to end up.
Before we get to King's Landing, Jon and Dany, the whole reveal, the Targaryen reveal, her begging him to keep it, I thought was really good. Actually, I liked how she tried to play Jon, and where she was just basically saying, look, we can just live like this forever and just not tell anyone, but I'll still be in charge and you have to do everything I say, where Jon was a bit kind of like, well, I'm not sure that's the way that this is going to pan out.
I didn't sign up for this.
What do we think Jon's thinking at this point? Because it's brought up time and time again. He doesn't want it. He doesn't, like Varys and Tyrion always say it. He doesn't want it. What does he want then? Because he doesn't seem happy with Dany's suggestion.
I think people like Jon, and he really is Ned's, well, not son, but Ned's descendant in some ways, because the job has always been the thing.
Yeah.
Like, that's his purpose, is to do his job. And latterly, his whole reason to be put on the earth was seemingly to defeat the Night King. Yeah. And now that that's happened, I think in this episode, we get a really good sense of his sort of slightly existential, like, well, what do I do? Because his feeling, everything he's done so far, like swearing his allegiance to Daenerys, was just to get her to help fight the Night King.
Yeah.
Now he's kind of like, maybe the right thing to do is to be the rightful heir. And so I think, and I don't think they do a great deal to get us into his head at this point, because all we sort of see of him is how reluctant he is and how torn he is. But yeah, I think he's feeling a real sense of, I don't know what my purpose is. And I think Davos says this as well, where he's like, to Tyrion, he's like, Melisandre, like, she brought this like divine power. Like, we all doubted it and it came and it's gone. And like, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Like, and
everyone's a bit lost, aren't they? Yeah.
Yeah, it's suddenly like not enough to just live a good life, because they're like, we've all been brought into this, like, we've all left our homes, our families, which is, where do we go? And there is this real sense of like displacement among a lot of people.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which I think is why Daenerys giving Gendry, it's like, you're going to do this now. You report to me.
Yeah.
Be in the Stormlands. You're a Baratheon.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of the characters figure that out, and that they feel that. They feel that sense of like, well, now we've got to deal with Cersei, I suppose. But like, as Tormund pointed out, he's a bit like, yeah, it's not really what I was here for. I'm going to go.
Yeah.
You know, feels like he can go back. But I think the thing I would say is that, like, we do... The problem with all the characters is that there's just too many... You know, we haven't got room for... They haven't got room for...
If they killed off, like, 7 more people the previous episode.
But I think, like, Sansa's beef with Daenerys is legit, but, like, all she can do in that episode when they're all drinking is just storm off. And it's like, you wouldn't do that. You are diplomatic. You know exactly. But the only way that we've got time to sort of go, we can just show how pissed off she is to have her storm off. That's the quickest way to just... Because we haven't got time for, like, Daenerys and Sansa having this, like, whole thing.
Yeah.
Exactly. The Jon stuff where he reveals to Arya and Sansa that he's actually a Targaryen, and he's like, don't tell anyone. And then Sansa tells Tyrion tells Varys. It just happens in the space of like 10 minutes, and it's like, what? This is like a season's worth of storyline that you're just blurting out.
Yeah, true. And I think, because actually, even though it's like a relatively slow episode, fucking lot happened in it, didn't it? Because I had completely forgotten that the dragon died.
The what, sorry?
That the dragon dies.
Yes.
Completely forgotten that since we last saw them, they'd built like 30 scorpions and installed them on every ship and also the entire perimeter of King's Landing, by the looks of it.
It's one of my least... Like, the thing about, again, these longer episodes but shorter seasons is that you have this, like, character-based moment up north, Last of the Starks, like, what's the next move? And then they're like, anyway, we're all sailing over and the dragon gets shot in the face. And it's like, the fuck did that come from?
Yeah.
It's so... You know that one of the big, like, memes about this season is from this episode where, you know, they used to do this inside the episode and Benioff and Weiss talk about the episode and they sort of go, the reason that Daenerys gets surprised is Daenerys kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet. And it's just like, you're flying along and you didn't see like 100, 200 ships. Like,
oh my God, I must have had to have my Dragoncast blinkers on for that. Wow. Yeah.
I'm going to just find...
That's a bit crazy, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm going to just... Wait, can I... It's a Know Your Meme, which is like the biggest archive of social... of like
Love Know Your
memes. Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet. Danny kind of forgot about the Iron Fleet refers to a memorable quote said by the HBO-produced fantasy series Game of Thrones writer David Benioff. Following the premiere, the quote was widely mocked and used to highlight the decreased quality of the writing in the late seasons of the series.
Oh my God.
While Danny kind of forgot about that. It's just really funny. Like, there's a very, very popular video where the quote is set to the Curb Your Enthusiasm music. And this is what I mean. You just have the most online people and this really volatile, sort of very hyper-aware, like, internet at the time that is just like, that's the dumbest thing you've ever said. So I really hated all of that, where Missandei gets captured and...
Yeah, I mean, I get Missandei. You know, I kind of enjoyed the whole Dracarys moment of her. I thought it was quite a nice goodbye for her and did serve a purpose to send Daenerys fully Tonto. So, you know, she lost her child and Missandei within kind of like 10-15 minutes. So I did kind of like that. I also had one of my favourite lines. There's a great line from Qyburn of all people, where Tyrion and Qyburn go to have that kind of meeting on the perimeter of the wall, and Tyrion's just like, we don't want to be here listening to the sound of screaming, dying children. And Qyburn just goes, yes, that's not a pleasant sound.
Oh yeah.
It's like I have 30 of them. I have 30 of them in my room doing exactly that.
Qyburn's actually quite funny. Like,
he's quite sassy. Like yeah.
He kind of is like, he sort of sounds like like a politician or something. It's all a bit campy.
It's a bit Jacob Rees-Mogg, isn't he?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I tell you some of the stuff that I didn't love is like the there was a bit of it in episode 2 which I thought was fine, but there was like the drinking games in this episode.
Oh,
where they like Brienne reveals that she's a virgin, and it's all a bit like I know what they're doing.
Would grown adults do that? No, they wouldn't.
But I love like yeah, I mean, there's some bits with Brienne where she's sort of teasing Tyrion. Like they sort of find out that he was married before Sansa, which obviously we know as being a very traumatic story. But I do think one of the things I just love is that I'm like, oh yeah, Brienne and Tyrion have like not really hung out before.
Yeah,
and it's really cool. Like
I did enjoy the after party. The after party
was
good. It did have very after party kind of vibes as well, didn't it?
I do feel bad when Daenerys is like, Tormund's like, he climbed on a dragon and flew away and he's amazing, and she's like, I've been doing that for 8 years.
Yeah, I was literally naked in a fire, dying. That's how far I've come. Yeah,
she's like, I've been through it, and you guys don't care. But I also think if I was her, it's kind of got energy of like, you know, when you're like the manager like comes to the team drinks and is like, hey guys, what's everyone talking about?
Yeah,
and you're
creased like iron jeans.
Yeah,
exactly that.
Hey guys, like, who wants to see pictures of my greenhouse? I mean, that would actually be me. That's me.
Box
being
fresh Prada trainers that the wife has bought for them. Yeah,
there's just an element of like, yeah, who's looking forward to Casual Friday next week? That I feel like if I was her, I'd be like, I don't care what any of you people think. I'm the fucking queen. I'm gonna go up to my go and have my girlfriends. We'll just get some wine.
Yeah, exactly.
Play Would You Rather, and you know.
And we say goodbye to Sam, or do we? I couldn't remember. So is that the last we see of Sam?
Come back in the finale, but yeah, Gilly's pregnant.
Of course, and John knew that by just glancing down in the way that only Hollywood people do. What else? Same as we saw that with Succession. With Caroline. In the
she
church.
just goes. I mean, mums and daughters, I think, is very different to John looking at Gilly and going, "You're pregnant."
Given the fact she had like 20 layers on anyway.
It's literally 20 layers. It's not like
Gilly's been wandering around in a spandex fucking catsuit for 10 years.
But also, when did she, like, at which point of them walking around from were they like? Well,
it must have been. When did they first have sexual intercourse?
Oh, do you think it's from when they shagged? Didn't they have?
It was when there was a battle, wasn't there?
I think
the night before something or other before, wasn't it? The Battle of the Bastards.
Did they have sex?
No,
because they go to Old Town Road.
I mean, that's what Sam said. Is there wasn't much to do at nights. The nights were long, and reading books is boring.
She can't read either, can she?
It's just like
what?
I don't know, I'm looking at. Can you just come and bang me?
Babe, what's wrong? You haven't touched your weighty tome. She's like, I can't read.
I can't read. Can we have sex now?
Jesus. Yeah, he does go. He's not in the next one though. You're right.
I don't know. I can't remember. That's what I put a question mark. I couldn't even remember if we saw Sam again. Okay.
I also, do you know what I wouldn't say finally?
Yeah.
Not finally, because we might have more to talk about. But Gendry proposing to Arya, again, feels like the kind of thing where it's like fan service. But I was like, those two are hot together. Like, they would be a great couple. And she's like, oh, I'm not a lady. I'm not going to be, your like doting wife. It's just not me. But I was like,
he might not want her to be.
These guys, she can be the man. He can be the fucking pretty himbo that she's the one fucking
He can just make her axes all day. Yeah.
But also, Robert Baratheon was like,
imagine the role play.
Literally, yeah. That's what I thought when she went, is it in episode 1 or 2 where she goes to the forge and she's like, have you made my weapon yet? And
which again never went anywhere.
Oh my God. Because I remember analysing. It was like a staff with a dragon glass tip.
Yeah, which just we never saw.
Which is never used before. Do you know what it reminds me of?
I don't think we even saw it.
She does use it and it gets like broken within about 5 minutes in episode 3. Because it's just such a like wah.
Yeah.
Tell you what it reminded me of though, it actually reminded me of when I was learning to drive, because I learned to drive in a Renault Clio.
As you do, yeah.
Because my driving instructor had a Renault Clio, And then the day before my driving test, I couldn't use my car. I had to use his for whatever reason. I think my mum had the car. And then the day before, he goes, "Oh my God, Chris, I totally forgot to tell you, but I've got a new car."
Oh my God, no.
I was like, I've literally been learning in my Renault Clio or a Renault Clio.
Specifically for this moment.
And it was a bit like that where he goes, "Look, it's pretty similar." It wasn't.
It's
basically a people carrier.
It's a people carrier.
It was basically a people carrier.
Oh my God.
And I was like sat behind it like I was on the top of a big bloody tractor. But that's what I thought when I saw it. Yeah, first time.
Oh, check him out. Didn't need it. There you go.
But
our own little area
because I don't believe in, I'm not a glory hogger. I'm just going to come clean. I passed my driving test first time. I passed my theory test on the 6th time.
Wow. Wow.
I couldn't
get your head around it. Yeah.
Every time I was like 1 or 2 points off passing.
Well,
and you had to get 30 out of 35. I always got 29. So I had to do it 6 weeks in a row.
Well, if you were born in 1832 like I was, there was no such thing as a theory test. They just sprung. There was no theory test. I never took a theory test.
That's appalling.
They just sprung like 5 questions on you as you were doing the test. Like they just go, "Oh, what does it mean when there's like 3 chevrons, blah, blah, blah." And you have to go, "Oh, yeah, what's the stopping distance here?" And you go, yeah. Anyway,
diversion.
I think that says everything, the fact that we moved on to driving tests so seamlessly. Long episode. What have we got next week? We got this. Oh my God, we're doing our live ones. Oh, shite.
Yeah.
We need to work out how we're going to do that. I think we might have to. I don't think we're going to do live both episodes. I think we'll.
We might have to break it down because I don't know if I want to watch the bells live.
No.
I don't know. It's actually a pretty good episode. Again, what I found is the battle episodes, I was going in with the wrong frame of mind, and I've watched them and I've been like, this is actually pretty good. And I think the bells is really intense, and there's bits I don't like, but I think it's actually all right. It's just the Daenerys stuff that sticks out like a sore thumb.
Okay, fine. Well, we'll work it out. We'll be in touch. Everybody on when we're going to do that, because we are going to do it live. We might pre-record the bells. And do the last one, the Iron Throne. We'll definitely do that one live for sure. But we'll be back on Monday with our final ever Sound of Succession episode, which I cannot wait for. And chances are we will do Game of Thrones, final Game of Thrones, a week on Monday. I think will probably make more sense because we want to give Succession its due, and also we want to give you guys that are listening for the Thrones rewatches enough time as well. We don't want to do a job badly. Don't want to rush through it.
No, we don't want to trip over before we get to the end.
Correct, Amundo. Let's see if we had any comments from last week's episode just before we go. A few comments. What do we got here? Christina, who was Azor Ahai?
Great question.
That's a very good question. Never got answered. Some people think it was John. Some people think it was Arya.
Daenerys. Arya. There's a case to be made for Arya.
Yeah.
I think after this, but I think also you just have to ignore all the previous details about who Azor Ahai is.
Yeah, exactly.
But this is what I mean about like you just wouldn't introduce that so heavily if you knew it was not going to get resolved.
Yeah.
You know.
Ronnie. Hey, Ronnie, how you doing, mate? Said, and I think in regards to what we were asking about Targaryens being outsiders, as far as I know, any Targaryen is classed as a foreign invader from Valyria, regardless of where they are born.
Right, that makes sense. That is really harsh, though.
Really harsh.
Really racist.
Said, we have some of the best produce in the world. You should come down here and enjoy it sometime. Are they referring to us talking about
Australia?
Thanks for.
Remember when I was like trying to remember what this sort of like what
pineapples?
Is their, like,
did you say
fruit?
do they have pineapples in Australia? I think was your great quote.
I was just trying to figure out. I was so tired. It's like, what is their native fruit? What's the thing that Australia is known for? And I would say it's either kiwi or bananas.
It was Howland Reed who took out Dane, not Robert. At least that's what the show showed. Lol. Again, reliving it again through your eyes makes me appreciate it more than I did originally. Good. That's what we're here for.
Yes,
the long night needed bigger consequences. Honestly, I thought the Night King crushed Arya's neck. Wouldn't that have been a more realistic ending if she died, but killing him as well? She really had no impact for the rest of the season. Not even a phase change. Let me know what time your live watch will be. It's Melbourne time here.
She never does a face change again.
Well, she did. The last one was with Walder Frey.
Yeah,
but was that?
Does that? Of a shame.
Is that because she ticked off everyone on her list? No, because Cersei was on the list.
Cersei's on there,
and the Hound.
And the Hound was still on there.
Yeah.
I think next episode is kind of the big thing where the Hound says to her, "You don't want to go down this path. You've got to let go of the anger. You've got to let go of It's going to eat you up, and it won't be pretty." And that's, you know, a rejection of that. But then you think, well, you did train. It's sort of like you're doing a hairdressing course at college and then never cutting a fucking never cutting anyone's hair.
It's a good point. I mean, you know, maybe there was a cut scene somewhere where she had put the face of a White on, or the face of a White Walker, maybe. Who knows? I
think also, I honestly thought going into it, it was gonna be Bran. The Night King was gonna kill Bran, and then it's like, actually Arya, but then she wouldn't have the mark. He can only trace him because of the mark on his arm. Really looking forward to doing episode 5. I think the episodes that I was less fond of are more interesting to talk about.
Good.
I feel like I just want to say Last of the Starks before we go. I feel like because because it's got a lot of problems, I feel like we didn't get super into it. But I don't know. There's just so much. It's just too much to talk about, almost, isn't it?
Yeah, and nothing was really. Feels like nothing was really done properly, either.
Yeah,
maybe.
Anyway, there we go. 60%, 66% of the way.
66%. Lovely stuff.
Yeah.
Until next time, guys, thanks so much for listening. Get in touch, Dragoncast_pod on Twitter, or Dragoncast at daftdoris.com, and we will see you for the final ever Game of Thrones rewatch until we go back and do House of the Dragon in about 6 months' time. Until then, Dracarys, my friend.
Dracarys.